Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and we're here today on Thursday, September 30th, to announce the launch of one of the most important initiatives in Westchester County, and it came out of the work that was established by our task force on police reform and reimagination. We all remember that in May of 2020, George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, and it launched an assessment of our police functioning in the country, in the state, and certainly here in Westchester County. And the mission behind that was to take a look at what we do in providing police services and to determine what could be done to improve those services. We understand the great value that the police provide for us in stabilizing our society, and we also saw individual examples of problems that had to be addressed, could not be ignored any longer. In the outgrowth of that incident, we made the decision, Ken Jenkins, Deputy County Executive, and my executive team, we made the decision to empanel a group of individuals with talent and skill and specific knowledge to look at initially our training services in Westchester County, and then shortly thereafter, the governor at the time announced a statewide requirement by every government to make an assessment of reform and reimagination of police. And in the process of doing that, I reached out to a number of prominent Westchester residents, a list too long to name all in one setting, of people to come in to meet as a task force and to try to make some assessment of the different issues and come back with a report. That group met, and you may recall back in April we announced to the people of Westchester County the results of that report. I'm joined today by Mayo Bartlett and Leroy Frazer, both of whom will be speaking. They were the co-chairs of that task force, and today's announcement is one of the major recommendations that came out of that task force. I might add that all of the other municipalities in Westchester County, the villages, towns, and cities that have police forces, also went through this process, and in their recommendations, a particular topic came back over and over again, and that is, how do we respond to incidents that at their core are primarily mental health issues, even if they are or not primarily questions of public safety. And the fine line of what represents that and how do we respond to that is what we're addressing today by announcing Project Alliance. Project Alliance is a cooperative effort amongst a group of entities and organizations through our direction at the county government. It is with the Department of Community Mental Health, represented here by the Commissioner of that county department, Michael Orth, the Department of Public Safety, represented here by our Deputy Commissioner, Terrance, Raynor, our Office of Emergency Services, represented by Commissioner Richard Wishnie, and our Department of Social Services, represented by Commissioner Leonard, to jointly help us craft a strategy to address the needs of Westchester County residents with behavioral health challenges, and to try to deal with that in a way that becomes more appropriate and more effective in those situations when they occur out in the community. There are 5 basic elements to this, and I'm going to have each of those speakers draw out on those elements, give you more detail and background on it. But those efforts include 9/11 dispatch diversion training, enhanced training for EMTs responding to behavioral health issues, enhancement of countywide behavioral health crisis response line, crisis intervention team trainings, and mobile crisis response teams. And I want to thank publicly, it's hard to do it when there's so many people to thank, all of the individuals that are behind me here, themselves personally, and the people they represent, for working cooperatively on this single recommendation, one of 52 recommendations that came out of this effort, to help us put in place within just a few months of the announcement of the report, not just here's a good idea, but here's how that idea gets implemented. This is a bold step. It's an innovative approach. There are patterns of things we're doing that other counties have adopted at various times, and we hope to pull it together and make it work and work effectively. As part of this process, I want to thank each of these individuals that are here, the people around them, all the members of the task force. I want to particularly thank Blanca Lopez, who is Assistant Director of Operations here in our executive team here in the Executive Chamber, for her outstanding work on this. And at the same time, Blanca was tasked with issues that deal with Census 2020 and issues of affordable housing. So she's had a portfolio that rivals any United States secretary of this department or that department, and she's performed all of those tasks brilliantly, Blanca. We appreciate, publicly, we appreciate what you've done as part of this team. So what I'm going to do first first is introduce the two co-chairs of our Police Reform and Reimagining Task Force, Mayo, Bartlett, Leroy, Frazer. They have done exceptional work for us. We have tasked them in their consultant roles with our Human Rights Commission on one hand and our Public Safety Department on the other hand, but these two individuals have helped shepherd us through this process. We're grateful for their professional experience. They both are lawyers, well-schooled in both the prosecutorial side. They both worked as assistant district attorneys in various parts, and then also in trial law and other elements of the law. And I couldn't have been more appreciative of Mayo and Leroy providing that service. So I give you Mayo Bartlett, Leroy Frazer. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Step back a little bit. Both of you standing.
Good afternoon. My name is Mayo Bartlett. I'm tremendously thankful for all of our partners here and for County Executive George Latimer for having the vision to convene a working group prior to the Executive Order 203 and having the vision to recognize that law enforcement could be reimagined and improved. And that we looked at it not as an indictment of law enforcement, but looking at what law enforcement actually could be and how is it that we're asking law enforcement to provide services, and are we properly allowing them to have the skills necessary to implement the types of decisions and types of interaction that we think are best for members of the county. And I'm just tremendously pleased to have played a role in Project Alliance, which will bring the best practices in terms of mental health treatment as well as law enforcement together, so that we no longer will have law enforcement officials that are going to be interacting with people who may be having a mental health crisis, and those law enforcement officers have not properly been trained to identify and deal with the unique challenges that are presented when dealing with a possible mental health crisis. And that we will have teams of individuals who are working together so that where appropriate, mental health professionals may take the point, but also where appropriate, law enforcement might take the point. And I think that this collaborative effort is going to be a tremendous service for all of the residents of Westchester County, as well as those who come and visit and those who have loved ones that are in the county. I look forward to us working to continue to implement the process, looking at the 3 teams that we expect to have in the county initially, and watching it expand ideally to the 8 teams. And the beauty of it, in my estimation, is that it will permit every person who's in Westchester County to realize that there will be available appropriate services, mental health services, 24 hours a day, no matter where you live in Westchester County. And that when you make a call, and that call is regarding a loved one who may be in need of mental health assistance, that there will be trained 911 operators who will be able to properly route that call so that the appropriate services will be sent to your home.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to again thank County Executive Latimer for his leadership. And I also like to thank all of the members here today for being actively involved in this direct action. A special thank you to the members of the task force, because it was through all of their hard work over a long period of time that we are able to stand here today and help announce Project Alliance as a direct action based on some of the recommendations put forth. In the world today, we see the specter of mental health issues on stages involving professional athletes, Olympic stars, businesses, everyday households, and of course, instances involving the criminal justice system as well. We recognize that not every incident involving a mentally disturbed person has to end up in the system. So actions like Project Alliance can aid the police in early intervention and diversion from the criminal justice system, and thereby allow them to focus their time and energy on their mandate to protect and serve. Mayo and I, along with members of the task force and staff, have continued to review all of the reports that were filed with the governor's office on the basis of his order. And in looking through all of them, there was a common thread that there were concerns about not only mental health, but also training. And I therefore want to give a direct thank you to the Westchester County Department of Public Safety, because with their excellent training academy, they did not hesitate and did not wait, but began initially to expand and enhance training that they were already doing on some of our recommendations, and certainly for the role that they're playing in Project Alliance as well. Finally, once again, I just want to acknowledge that there was a lot of work done, not only by the members of the task force, but by the county legislators involved and all the staff within the county executive's office. And without that, nothing could have been accomplished, but I'm proud of the work that has been done by the task force and look forward to continued implementation.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Leroy. Thank you, Mayo. And I just want to pick up on what Leroy said at the end. The work of the task force is not yet done. We have asked the members of the task force to continue to meet, to continue to look at the implementation, not just of this particular program that represents one of the recommendations, but the other recommendations that are there. We have a number that we have completed already, and in due time we'll have that opportunity with Deputy Commissioner Raynor and Commissioner Gleason to be able to report on how we've moved. We've made these initiatives, this particular one, with a close working relationship with our police department, and we have had to this point good cooperative relationship on all of the initiatives we've taken to this point. So this is not any type of an us versus them scenario. This is working to implement reforms that at the present time have general strong consensus. There are going to be issues before us that will be debated in the county legislature and in the community at large, but today's initiative is one example of how the task force work continues, and we look forward to their continued contribution. Next, I'd like to ask our Commissioner of the Community Department of Mental Health, Michael Orth, to speak to us, because so much of what is involved in this effort has to do with our professionals in the area of mental health. Commissioner Orth.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, County Executive. If any of us here were to experience a fire in our home, we would expect an immediate response from the fire department. If a family member were in harm's way, we would expect a trained police officer to assist and protect us. If we ourselves were experiencing a medical emergency, we would expect a professionally qualified medical person or EMS to treat us. If we or a family member were to experience a behavioral health, mental health challenge or crisis, we should also expect an immediate response from a trained and qualified using evidence-based, racially, culturally, linguistic, competent, trauma-informed practices. For over 20 years, our department has partnered with law enforcement around our county to address and help behavioral health emergencies when they arise. Unfortunately, this critical resource has not been a national priority due to various reasons, including stigma, absence of true health parity, silo funding streams, and lack of understanding of mental health, substance misuse, developmental intellectual disabilities, and co-occurring disorder. This lack of investment in such critical services has led our police officers to have to respond by necessity, and to individuals and their families experience such issues as depression, anxiety, autism, substance misuse, trauma, and other life stressors desperate for immediate assistance. All this culminates in unmet needs, repeated calls to the police, as well as overrepresentation of people experiencing behavioral health crisis entering hospital emergency rooms, jails, and shelters. Through the foresight of County Executive George Latimer and the efforts of this task force led by co-chairs Mr. Bartlett and Mr. Frazer, Westchester now has a great opportunity to build a more responsive and coordinated behavioral health system. Through the efforts of our Project Alliance Steering Committee, led by Blanca Lopez, Assistant Director of Operations, Public Safety, Emergency Medical Department, Department of Social Services, and Department of Community Mental Health, and input from key stakeholders, including police departments and community agencies, we are implementing 5 key components that we think will create a first-of-its-kind seamless system of crisis response. As the County Executive outlined, these components include a 911 dispatch diversion training and support. Thanks to Public Safety, Emergency Services, we've already started these trainings to several first responders and dispatchers. This will include a separate phone line to our St. Vincent's Crisis Prevention team to help our dispatchers using an evidence-based tool to direct these calls to a mental health professional. Thanks to Commissioner Wishnie, we're also providing enhanced training for EMT who often respond to behavioral health issues. We're also enhancing our countywide behavioral health crisis line, which includes supporting, as of July 2022, a new national suicide hotline that will also be a local response to those individuals who may be experiencing suicidal ideation and need support. We've also continued to expand our crisis intervention team training, which is not only for police officers, but also a way to engage community partners to support those in psychological distress. And finally, we're very proud to report on our mobile crisis response team, which will include 8 teams of mental health experts, people with lived experience, who will partner and co-respond with our local law enforcement to help those who have a mental health, substance use, or other stress that we can respond to. Our department looks forward to this exciting opportunity made possible by the leadership and commitment of our county executive to work with our partners in creating the best possible response that both reflects the diversity of our county and leads to the best possible outcomes for our residents experiencing a behavioral health crisis. We're excited to partner with our police and our communities and fellow county departments to achieve this goal of creating a mutual response for mental health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Our next speaker is Terrance Raynor, who serves as the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Public Safety in Westchester County. He began his career in law enforcement as a police officer in the city of Mount Vernon, worked his way up through a variety of promotions to head that department, ultimately as Commissioner of the Mount Vernon Police Department, and he graciously agreed to join us 3 years ago to serve as our Deputy Commissioner under our Commissioner Sheriff Tom Gleason. Deputy Commissioner Terrance Raynor.
Thank you, County Executive. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today to convey a message from the Department of Public Safety. The executive team at the Westchester County Department of Public Safety remains committed to exploring new ideas, recommendations, and programs which go toward providing better services to the communities we serve here in our county. We are constantly evaluating and reevaluating our policies and procedures, as well as the services we provide. We fully support Project Alliance and view it as a valuable tool for both police and the public. The implementation of this project means mental health experts will employ their skill sets in the field where they have an immediate opportunity to assist a person in crisis. Having the mobile crisis response teams in place will free uniformed police officers to respond to other calls for service. Project Alliance is yet another example of a collaborative effort between county agencies and municipalities, working together to enhance the services provided to our communities and to improve the overall public safety of our county. We look forward to the implementation of Project Alliance. We salute the efforts of the county executive, our county legislators, the Police Reform and Reimagining Task Force, the Department of Community Mental Health, the Office of Emergency Services, and the Department of Social Services. Working together, we make a positive difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Commissioner. And I should highlight that the first 3 locations that this program will be rolled out in 2021 includes Portchester, New Rochelle, and Mount Kisco. And in Mount Kisco, the local police functions are provided by the County Department of Public Safety on contract with the village of Mount Kisco. So we are very much going to be on the firing lines day to day in Mount Kisco in the first round of the efforts that we're talking about. Our next speaker who can speak to the emergency management element of this project is our Commissioner for Emergency Services, Richard Wishnie. Richard and I have been colleagues in the county legislature. As a leader here, he was a town supervisor of the town of Ossining in his prior public service, and he's been involved in a host of different areas in both county and local government, as well as in the private sector that really have been a great benefit to the county as he has returned in this capacity, and we're very happy to have him leading his department as part of this team. Richard.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer, and good afternoon to everyone. Project Alliance is an opportunity to address a long-term issue that impacts citizens with behavioral health issues and all first responders, including emergency service dispatchers, police, EMS, and firefighters. The concept of providing specialized training to 911 dispatchers who receive the initial call for assistance is the gateway to determining the type of emergency response that might be required. As an example, the dispatcher is the first person that has an opportunity to de-escalate a crisis for a person who is threatening to harm themselves. The dispatcher gathers pertinent information that will lead to the appropriate response of either police, a mobile response team consisting of specially trained personnel in mental health and substance abuse issues, or a joint response. Another critical aspect of this program is to offer additional specialized training to the EMS community throughout Westchester County. While there is some behavioral health training required for EMTs and paramedics, we believe additional training will go a long way in providing the safety of behavioral health patients as well as EMS personnel. I particularly want to thank County Executive Latimer, Director of Operations Joan McDonald, and Assistant Director of Operations Blanca Lopez for providing the leadership and resources that has created Project Alliance. I sincerely believe this will become a national model that will save lives. I also want to thank my colleagues, Commissioner Michael Orth, Tom Gleason, and Leonard Towns, along with their professional staffs, for the opportunity to join them in what is truly a historic effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Wishnie. Appreciate it. The next commissioner to speak is the head of our Department of Social Services. Leonard Towns has been a professional in that department for over 30 years, and in taking on the responsibility of commissioner, he heads the largest operating department in Westchester County, and it is the Department of County Government that interacts with people in crisis, economic crisis, and other types of circumstances. So it makes the work that they do particularly important, and it also puts him and the professionals in his department directly in contact with the other departments we've just mentioned in trying to address these needs in a way that accomplishes the mission of resolving them and de-escalating them before tragedy can occur. Commissioner Towns.
Good afternoon. Thank you, County Exec. I first want to thank my peers in this, the other commissioners who spoke, Wishnie and Commissioner Orth, Commissioner Gleason. We form a great partnership because the work we do ties together. And it's a great opportunity for us to build our relationships and work together as a team more effectively. I have to say, as the County Exec said, the murder of George Floyd shined a light on policing throughout the United States. And I commend him for doing what he always does, acting swiftly to solve critical issues. He had the insight to bring the community in on the situation and the wherewithal to use his resources to have us commissioners come together and work as a team to work on solving the situation. It's no secret that Westchester has had its share of incidents in the past. As a Commissioner of Social Services, we deal directly with the people, so I'm going to talk to you from the heart and from the human element. I grew up here in White Plains, right down the street at the Winbrook Projects, and I was acquainted with the Chamberlain family, and I can't help but think if we would have had the resources and the understanding back then, we could have preserved a life. But that was a different time, and unfortunately, as time goes, sometimes things have to happen to bring about change. But fortunately for Westchester County, we have a county executive by the name of George Latimer who believes in justice for all. He's demonstrated time and time again, repeatedly, that he will stand with those who have issues that need to be addressed and seek justice for anyone who are going through challenging situations. And what I have to say about this partnership is that we have to continue to work forward as a team to solve some of these issues. And a big part of that is going to be working with the communities. We have to take on initiatives that bring the police together to engage with the community and build those relationships that create a lasting change. I have to highlight one initiative that's going on in Westchester. By the blessing of the Parks Commissioner, Kathleen O'Connell, she allowed a Ride for Justice to occur a year ago, and it's been happening annually. And at that ride, people from all over Westchester come together, ride their bikes for justice, and the police join in. Public safety comes. I've met police from Mount Vernon there, Yonkers, and Greenburgh, and that's what's needed, those relationships to come together and get to know each other. The police team from Greenburgh even had shirts that said, racism has no jurisdiction here. And I thought that was great because they were looked upon, they gave out a few T-shirts, and everyone felt great about them being there, and they referred to them as, these are the good guys. So it's relationship building like that that has to continue for us to move forward and do great things. And I, for one, feel positive that going forward, we'll continue to get these things done under the leadership of George Latimer. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. On our task force for police reform and reimagination, we asked 3 members of the County Board of Legislators to serve as participating members that would be involved in all of the discussions, and that they would bring their personal opinions into the discussion, their own ideas, but at the same time, because they represent a separate branch of government, the legislative branch, that they would then be able to look with their legislative colleagues who didn't serve on the committee, the ability to look at what legislation we needed to have. And of these many recommendations that have come out, some of them are almost purely legislative responsibilities, some are administrative responsibilities or executive branch, but we wanted to make sure that those legislators had that influence within that structure. I've served as a member of that board for 13 years, chaired that board as Ken Jenkins in his era chaired that board as well. I have great respect for the separate role that legislators provide for both oversight, but also for participative input in the process of creating the decisions up front. So I'm pleased to have Legislator Colin Smith. He'll speak first. He is chair of the relevant committee of the Board of Legislators that deals with these issues. Damon Maher is with us here, County Legislator, and we hope to be joined by Terry Clemens as well. And if we can, we'd like to hear from all 3 of those legislators and their service. First, Legislator Colin Smith.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I wanted to just start out by saying first off that like in so many other ways or so many other areas, Westchester County is a leader. We're a leader in the state, and I'm sure we're a leader nationwide in terms of many of our initiatives. And this Project Alliance, which we're talking about here today, is such a crucial piece of the reform that we've been hearing everybody talk about. When I was appointed to be the chair of the Public Safety Committee for the Board of Legislators, of course, I couldn't have anticipated a number of things, like none of us could have. The pandemic, for example, which ensued within months of my appointment, and then, of course, what some have called the second pandemic, that of racism. And when County Executive George Latimer appointed or convened the task force several weeks before the executive order came down from the governor, it was clear that the county was once again poised and ready to take a leadership position on this issue. And that's exactly what was done here. I was honored to be appointed a member of that task force. I sat on the accountability subcommittee where, although we didn't deal directly with the issue of mental health, certainly it came up in our discussions time and time again. And what we have here today, there's a saying, an older saying, many hands make for light work. And what you see up here today is really only a fraction of the hands, of the many hands that have come together to make for, maybe light work is a bit of a overstatement, but certainly we come together as a team under great leadership and with the professional community here at the county. The Department of Public Safety has been amazing in being time and again willing to come to the table and talk with us and you know, being willing to work with the community on this whole process of reform and reimagining. And today's announcement for this new initiative, it really just speaks to the county's vision and commitment to expanding the tool set, expanding the arsenal that our public safety and our mental health professionals have when dealing with persons who are in crisis, who are experiencing mental health crisis. And I, for one, I applaud the work of everyone, but I specifically, like others have, I want to point out Blanca Lopez, who has been really one of the point people throughout this entire process, and has just done a tremendous job at keeping everything together, keeping us all in line when the occasion arose. Mayo and Leroy did a fantastic job. I don't know how you guys made it to not only did you make it to every task force meeting at the county, they were bouncing around to the different task force meetings that were meeting locally around the county. And you start naming names and you get lost in the sauce here, but everybody who's standing here and so many others who were a part of this process have just really brought us to this point today where we are ready to deliver a substantive and measured approach to increasing our capacity as a county towards answering and meeting the needs and the challenges, the issues that were raised in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. And we will not only do that here, at the county level with our Department of Public Safety and Department of Mental Health Services and Social Services, but we will be able to offer this service to our municipalities, many of whom don't have the capacity or the capability to do this on their own. So it's another great example of where government can really work. County government working together with our local municipalities can bring about the result to better serve our constituents here in Westchester County. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Colin. And now County Legislator Damon Maher.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, and all those up here on the podium today. First, for so quickly beginning to implement what I think is one of the 2 or 3 most important recommendations that our task force made, and also for choosing my home city of New Rochelle as one of the first 3 sites of the project. I'm not going to call them experimental or pilot projects, really, because this is a model that has worked before, and I'm confident will work here. First came to me, the concept came to me from 2 young African-American men who told me about a program called CAHOOTS out in Oregon, which stands for Community Assistance Help Out on the Streets, which has these kinds of mobile response units. And it's been in existence for many years, I think since 1989, in a city, urban-suburban kind of mix, much like New Rochelle. And also, we now have New York City has adopted a similar model. They're only a few months in, but the early results are very good. That approximately 25% of the 911 calls have been diverted in this manner, which leads me to 2 other points. One is to amplify what Commissioner Wishnie said about the police being freed up in many instances to do what they've really been trained to do. We were told in the task force by police officers, social work is not our job, and every problem that the society generates because of the way it is tends to land at our door, and we're not experts in that. So I think the police will work very well with this. A thing that has not been mentioned yet is a manner in which we can expand the efficacy of this program. And this comes from discussions I had with the police in the village of Tuckahoe and the town of Greenburgh. Village of Tuckahoe, one of our smaller villages, both in geographic size and population, is where the police are out and about. They're out of their cars, they're walking, they're on bikes sometimes. They know the community, they know folks and families that are having problems, and they've got sort of that database in their mind. Greenburgh, which I think is the largest town in our county, has some police I spoke with, said they're developing information that they're saving online about what might trigger a particular individual's antisocial behavior or an emotional distress situation, and from family and their interaction of other police who've, in this big police department, have had some interactions with a person before. They know, how they can kind of decelerate the anger, reduce the tension level, and get things done. Now, it's good that they can do that, and they have some training in that, but it's great to have people who really have a professional background and the training that is needed on site. So I couldn't be tickled more that New Rochelle has been chosen as one of the first communities that will have the benefit of this program. Thank you.
I want to thank both Legislator Smith and Legislator Maher for their participation and their involvement in the work of the task force. As I mentioned, the task force work goes on, and so we hope we'll have the benefit of their work and Legislator Terry Clements as well as part of that larger task force effort. The response teams that are being created are being phased in over time. We want to make sure that we get it right. And so before the end of this year, we're establishing 3 teams in 3 areas. And we've mentioned already, aforementioned, the city of New Rochelle, in the village of Portchester, and in the village town of Mount Kisco. And they are 24/7 crisis response teams. They will serve a defined catchment area. So while the basis may be in Portchester, they will also respond to a Rye Brook issue. They may respond to a Rye City issue. If they're based in Mount Kisco, they would respond over the border into Bedford or into Newcastle as well. They're regional, but they're centered in a particular part of that region where we think they can do the most good. In 2022, and we will develop a budget and present it to the Board of Legislators that will include 5 additional teams in 2022 based in Ossining, in Peekskill, in the White Plains Greenburgh corridor, in the city of Mount Vernon, and in the city of Yonkers. And once again, we look for regional response from these various teams. A team based in Ossining would be expected to respond in Briarcliff Manor, perhaps in Sleepy Hollow, depending on how the lines are structured. When fully operative, 8 teams across the county. We'll see if that can accomplish our mission in an effective way. We'll be evaluating this as we go along. Joan McDonald, our Director of Operations, Emily Saltzman, Blanca, the operational team, will work with these commissioners to determine what we have to do to tweak the system and what we can learn from other communities that are using the same format. And to the extent that this is just one of many recommendations that are made, we'll do our very best to try to implement all of them as we go forward. Before I make any closing comments, I want to offer an opportunity for any members of the press. I believe News 12 is represented in the room. Jonathan Gordon is here. If there are any questions that you have for myself or any of my colleagues, we're happy to do it now. If not, we can certainly do it offline. And for any members of the press who may be tying into this by feed, you're welcome to reach out to Catherine Chaffee at 995-2932. Our Director of Communications, and she will link you to any of our speakers here today to give you any additional depth that you might like to have. So just in closing, today's announcement involves us implementing a very important step for dealing with those individuals who in the community may be suffering from a mental health issue, and it reflects as an area of crisis that needs response, and that we would have trained professionals able to both determine at the point of dispatch and at the point of interaction in the incident exactly the nature of the incident so that the right qualified people can respond along with law enforcement, and that hopefully will get better outcomes. We would have less likelihood of a tragedy. We've heard many anecdotes around the country of situations that turn tragic when they might have been resolved short of tragedy, and yet at the same time that public safety and public order be implemented. That is our mission today, and that is what we're announcing with all of this this involvement of these key officials. I appreciate again all the professionalism reflected here in the group that are both members of the county administration, within the county legislator, and those individuals who are voluntarily assisting us to implement all of this. I'm the grandson of a police officer, and I understand, although he is long gone, my grandfather exactly how difficult a job is of a police officer, police management, all the lines up. I'm sure Terrance has more than a share of stories of what it's like out on the line. And we respect that, and no one should misrepresent that the effort to reform is somehow an effort to undermine. It is an effort to try to get things a little bit better, as we do in every other field of endeavor. We try to do a better job in the way we treat sewage. We try to do a better job in the way we deliver transportation services. We try to do a better job in the way we manage and upgrade our park system. And the same applies in this area, because we respect those men and women of law enforcement who take on this responsibility. I've had the pleasure, along with Ken Jenkins, to go to many graduations of new recruits, to go to classes where individuals are promoted, and we express that appreciation for their work. And that appreciation is real, and it's clear, and it's from all of us. At the same time, we're each trying to do better so that we eliminate that tragedy from happening in our backyard to the best extent possible. There's an oft-quoted poem. I had to actually memorize it as a child, one of the great Robert Frost poems that we all know the lines to. And the closing is almost a cliche now. It's been used all the time. But it's the poem about on stopping in snowy woods. And it closes with these woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. We have miles to go before we sleep. We are not done. We're not tired. We're not done. But we have promises to keep, and those promises are to the men and women of Westchester County that we will provide safety in every way that represents. That's our mission, that's our intent, and with the will of God, we will achieve that. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day. Be safe. We'll report back again on Monday with an update of COVID information and continue our dialogue with you on the issues at hand here in the County of Westchester. Thank you for watching.